Hi, everyone. This is Desiree Pointer-Mace from Alverno College. This is going to be a Hangout for graduate students who are creating their classroom improvement projects so that we can update each other on what we're doing. So at this point, I am just waiting for the other people to arrive. And let's see, I will try to invite. Hello. Hey, Boonrod.
Hey.
How are you?
Doing all right. Yourself?
I'm doing all right. So while we're waiting for other people to show up, how are things?
Things are okay. Did Nikki contact you?
No.
Okay. Well, she did not get the email, so she's actually out at Alverno,
Oh no.
and she's
Oh no.
yeah, and she's probably going to be driving back to her place. So I told
no.
her, I told her to contact you if anything, like maybe she can meet up with the next group or something.
Yeah. Totally. That is possible. Actually, if you can text her, just tell her that that's completely fine, or I can meet with her individually.
Okay, cool.
Hello, Beth. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep. Totally.
Okay.
So unfortunately,
Hi, Beth.
Boonrod just told me that Nikki did not get the email, so she went to Alberto.
Oh no.
It's terrible.
Oh.
But at any rate, so why don't we'll just have this be kind of like a rolling update. How are things going with each of your thinking about your projects?
Boonrod, do you want to go first?
I'm texting Nikki right now. Do you mind? Thank you.
No, that's good.
Okay, awesome.
Things are going well. I was thinking about doing something with like tribe small groups. But I don't know if my kids are at a place right now where that could be really successful or useful for them.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking about switching more to like a character development kind of thing. So I know Kith has kind of a whole character development like report card they put out. So I think I'm thinking like a pre, a mid, and an end sort of thing using that with like a third of my kids. So like
Nice.
kind of picking 10 who are like usually on purple, usually on blue, green, you know, and having a group like that.
Yeah.
And then doing some research into some character development books and like curriculums. I know I have some books around here that are about like teaching kids that sort of stuff.
Uh-huh.
So either developing my own lessons or using the ones they already have.
Excellent. So what are some of the things that you're hoping to see as far as implementing the KIP character report card?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of, I mean, it goes with all those characteristics. So they're like grit and like perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what they all are right now.
Right.
There's just a lot of bullying going on, like very sneaky bullying.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like if I'm able to build character stuff with that, that maybe to see that cut down.
Are you saying bullying with boys and girls?
Yes. Yeah, more recently my boys, but it has been both groups.
Yeah. Interesting, because there's definitely stuff that's looked at gender and aggression, but I think that one thing that can be tricky is that, and that I would suggest that you think about and maybe do some reflecting about is when you're saying bullying, what is it that you are naming and describing? Hold on for a second, let me see if this...
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm not sure. I might be. I'll get my headphones in a minute so that I'll have less of an echo. But I think that like a lot of people are putting lots of different kinds of things into bullying these days. And so you might want to like, are there particular ones that are concerning that you can look at and then see if attention to grit, attention to perseverance seems to track.
Right.
You kind of describe, and there might be other people who've looked at that as well. Like the one that definitely comes to mind is Paul Tuff's book, that build How Children Succeed, and that the first sort of big, I don't know, sort of media attention to Kip's character report card was from him. So that might be.
I just pulled it up. What's all on there? So it's grit, optimism, self-control, gratitude, social intelligence, curiosity, and zest.
Ah, nice. Curiosity and zest. Lovely.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. I'm just going to
Yeah.
invite Zach.
So,
Just Zach Johnson 252 at Gmail. Okay. There we go. All right. Invite. Hey, Mary Catherine.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm fine.
Are you at school or at home?
I'm at home.
All right. Lovely. All right. So Beth is getting us updated on her project. She's thinking about character ed and grit and aggression and bullying. So what I think we should do maybe, Beth, as a good next step, is take each of those terms and put them in both a definition that works for you, as well as what that looks like in your classroom right now.
okay.
As kind of action. Because that way you can help other people understand it, because all of those terms might be multiply understood by different people.
Yeah.
Just one second. I'm going to go get my headphones. I'll be right back.
Hey Beth, I'm curious to know more about yours because mine has shifted since the last time we met up in class.
Okay.
Yeah, so mine is I don't even know what it looks like right now, but it's going to be focused around like more social emotional aspects of my classroom as well, just because like I felt like that's what they need a whole bunch of help with. So maybe we can talk together at some point in time a little bit more about it.
Yeah, let me share this the KIP card that I'm talking about with you.
Yeah, could you? That'd be great.
I'll send it right now.
Awesome.
I'm gonna look for a book quick, so I'll be right back too.
Hi, Zach.
Hello. Did Desiree disappear from this?
She's coming back. She went to go get her headphones.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Hi, Zach.
Hello.
Just a second. Oliver. Feedback.
Sully, Oliver.
All right. Perfect. Is that better? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. So, Mick, Boonrod, you were asking Beth about some of her thinking. I just want to make sure. Can you just recap for me what I missed while I was running around?
Yeah, so just listening to what Beth was talking about, I was just telling her that the scope of my classroom improvement project has changed since the last time that we talked, and it's dealing more with social, emotional, problem-solving type stuff. So I was just saying maybe we can like get together and talk together a little bit more. And she just sent me the thing that she was telling us about.
The KIP character thing?
Yes. Yeah, that thing.
So why don't you go next? Tell us where you're at with your thinking and how you're thinking about social emotional problem solving. What does it look like? What are the concerns? What are some things that you've read or could read?
So I haven't been doing a whole bunch of reading on that yet. I was very focused on the original idea that I had, and
oh, can other people hear Boonrod? Okay. We seem to have lost you, Boonrod. All right, well, hopefully she will come back in a moment. How about we skip to Zach, and then we can come back to Boonrod when she figures out her audio issues. So, Zach, what's up with you?
Well, Beth and Mary and I met last week, and I kind of was trying to figure out something to do with tribes, because I kind of started poking through some of their resources. But it seemed like more than I would really be able to take on for this project.
Is that similar to what you were thinking, Beth?
No, I just think where my kids are at right now, I don't know if I can trust them in that kind of environment with all like the note passing and mean underhanded words that are happening.
Mm, yeah. Well, that could be a
So
classroom improvement project for the future then.
Yeah, definitely.
So Bunrad, you're back, and we have
Okay,
audio for you.
awesome. Okay, cool. Yes.
And then Zach will come back to you.
okay.
So what it looks like so far that I have is that sheet with all of the different emotions. How are you feeling today? And so they're going to be able to identify and do this throughout the day, like whenever they have a very strong emotion, whether if that be anger or they're just really upset at something. And I was thinking about having them do this at school, but then also being able to bring this journal-like thing home. That way at home, if they feel any particular event has like stirred up a lot of really strong emotion, they can record like time, date, event, who was involved in it, what did they do, the party do, and what did they do. How did that make them feel, and then what they could do next time. So that's like the only really solid, concrete material piece that I have so far. And it's still kind of coming along together as I was talking it out with Becca a little bit more. Yeah.
Now, so give me a little sense of how you're going to introduce that to families so that it won't feel like I am reporting on fights in my home.
I have not thought that far yet. Not at all. No.
Because I think that you want, I mean, in whatever letter goes home, you want to, think about, I mean, maybe it's even, I don't know, there might be a different one that you could do for home, or that you might even, I don't know, like since that could be, let's see, poor Becca can't figure out how to get on. Let's see. Let's see, she was just texting me saying that. I'll check in with her in a moment. But I think that, yeah, you definitely, I think that sounds great for in school because you can explain it to them, you can navigate it, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to do it at home, are there particular parents in your class that you have a good relationship with? That you could maybe like collaborate with?
Strong relationships with, but like with my general population, parents are typically not opposed to things that are
like kind of deferential to your authority as a teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I think though then, I mean, maybe I'm just thinking about like that what if a kid is saying, I hear my mom and dad fighting about this. Here's how it made me feel. I think give that part of it
that could get
thought.
Yes. Okay.
So perhaps let's see, you could think about maybe starting with in school and then invitationally, oh, hi, Beth's dog. Take it into the extend as an option into the home, or maybe
that's true.
But I think you'll probably get enough good stuff if kids are checking in regularly throughout the day to be able to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to try inviting Becca again. All right, let's see. And let's see, I just invited you again. Okay. But that I think sounds like it's interesting. What do you all think about Beth and Bunrad so far? So we've got a couple different angles on social emotional health, which is the kind of the focus for this group, informal focus. Suggestions, things that you'd like to see them explore?
I don't think it would actually be that bad to hear, or like to leave that open. Like, I can see what you're saying about it maybe being a tough conversation with parents if they then realize that their kid is talking about things going on at home. But like if it's maybe something that they fill out at like first thing in the morning, like if there's still if it's not something they're taking home. So that maybe parents just don't need to know. If that was to be something that came up, it's something that they are dealing with, and so having those conversations about how to be processing that
Right.
that's something that's going to be setting them off or be something that they're thinking about all day.
Well, it's interesting
The
because
skill, like, the skills would still be applying.
yeah, it makes me think about Beth's comment around like wanting to do something with tribes, not sure what people would do with the no passing or right to pass, like sort of the small little comments of, where kids aren't being kind to each other. But if things are maybe in writing, it might be a good first step. Today I feel blank because. I think Zach's suggestion to do it maybe first thing in the morning might be really cool because that way you're looping in the home piece without necessarily having things be onerous or having it be kind of extra homework. And how does that seem, Boonrod? What do you think?
That definitely would bypass some of that, like, what is this journal thing that your teacher's having you do? And I feel like it would be less intrusive.
Yeah.
Because definitely with some of my kids, obviously, it's the home events that are really fouling up their mood sometimes throughout the day. So yeah, that's a really great idea. Thanks, Zach.
Well, and I wonder if there might be, because you mentioned a couple things. One is sort of like the way that you were describing it almost seemed like a table, right? Like time, date, event, who was involved, what did someone do, what did they do, what can they do next time?
Yeah. Let me, I can just pull it up right now. And
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, keep talking.
Well, what I was thinking is that then that gives you two different kinds of data. You've got some qualitative data and some quantitative data, because if they're sort of saying, like, you could potentially look at, Mondays are harder, right? It could be, or Mondays are, I don't know, I'm imagining something that might be like, Monday's child is fair of face, Tuesday's child, Wednesday's child is full of woe. That you might end up with some kind of weekly trends about social emotional experiences, responses, states. And then, but also you would have potentially, if they're writing, like, what was your response, what can you do, there might be some shifts in a student's own sense of what he, she can do in response to social emotional stimuli. You see what I'm saying?
I did not hear that last bit you said. Can you say that again?
Basically, what I'm thinking is that you'll also have qualitative data, so that if kids are writing things like, for example, what I can do next time, you might even do at the end some kind of analysis. I could imagine a word cloud, from one kid, maybe. Like, here's word cloud from week 1, here's word cloud from week 3, and seeing how maybe some of the words that they use to describe their emotional state changes over time. Maybe it even becomes more balanced. Like, sad, mad, happy might be really at the beginning.
Yeah.
And, they might get actually a more expanded vocabulary to describe their emotional situation over time.
Got it. Cool.
All right. Cool. Well, that sounds really interesting. I'm curious to see. And also, you've got, I don't know if anybody's looked at social emotional development for among children, but since you have such a homogeneous population, it might be interesting to see if other folks have looked into that at all.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you think about maybe having them draw as well?
Yeah, so I'm guessing the way that Becca and I kind of conceptualize like everything they would be doing, like all the work that they would be interacting with would be happening in this journal. So it's just a matter of, okay, so what are the materials that should be going in? So definitely this sheet, something like that would definitely work. Maybe just on the back of it, having it be blank, and then if they choose to illustrate it too, that would totally be an option.
Yeah, because the reason that I'm thinking it is that I remember the very first time that I was learning about forms of literacy in Hmong culture, that certainly telling rich and dense stories through visuals is, a centuries-old tradition. And so that might be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to Zach. So when last we left you, Zach, you were thinking about, that it was similar. It was kind of feeling like tribes was maybe going to be a little bit remote for your kids. So tell us about kind of where you are.
Well, as far as I've gotten was thinking about um, like doing some combination of like explicitly teaching strategies for dealing with confrontation in ways that don't involve getting out of your seat and coming and talking to me for one, but also like doing some sort of peer mediation, and I hadn't quite figured out what that would look like, if that would be like a class job, like I had 2 or 3 people that I could trust to be relatively impartial, and be like the person I would have worked through. I was thinking of something that my elementary school had actually, that we used, that if you had a problem, it was only on the playground, I remember, but they had like a sheet that they would fill out with the 2 people that had a disagreement, and try and help them come to some sort of agreement. So I want to do some more reading on like remediation strategies, like conflict resolution strategies.
I'm going to move we've got some kitchen noise. Okay.
There we go. Doing some sort of I think that's Boonrod.
I think so too. I was trying to mute her. Let's see. Oh, it looks like Boonrod, you need to mute yourself. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have control over Boonrod.
Am I muted?
You were not, but there was like sort of loud water noise. All right, perfect. There we go.
So I was just thinking about what that would look like and how to roll that out, I guess, was my kind of where I'm at, and trying to figure out, do I have, would it just be a simple thing like Mary was sharing things that she does for, if there's a disagreement about a spot in line, they just do Rochambeau, rock, paper, scissors, whatever you want to call it, 1 round, and then that's done, and like that's just a class expectation that she put in place. Or if so if it's like a set of those sorts of things that are explicit lessons that then are just kind of part of the way that the class functions, or if there's like a explicit, these 2 people are peer mediators, they can help, deal with these problems that don't need to necessarily be the teacher, and certainly don't need to be dealt with by a principal. Like, we can talk this out in the room.
Right.
But I don't know exactly, like the rolling that out and figuring out exactly what that system would look like is kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, I could imagine, I mean, first of all, I think that's really interesting, and I could imagine that there's different kinds of, I mean, you were describing simple, but it's like there's sort of different levels of complexity of solving problems. There's the who's going to be in front in line, or who's going to go first in this fairly low stakes, nobody's grouchy at each other situation. And that might be that a Rochambeau or a, pick a number or whatever could be. But then there's obviously like sort of, I'm tired. I'm at the end of my day. I didn't eat a good lunch or a good breakfast, and I feel like you are really, really disrespecting me. How then can you build some capacity for your students, maybe through peer mediation, where they could follow some kind of script? I'm sure that have you read stuff on peer mediation yet?
No, I mean, I've been kind of focusing on wanting to do. I mean, I was thinking more along the lines, and I was trying to dig up some of the articles that others had posted on restorative justice, and I was kind of thinking about it like in like a whole class setting, but it seemed like it might be a little bit more manageable to do it by introducing this like the peer mediation. That was kind of like my way of trying to make restorative justice, manageable for a short. Yeah, because I don't like that seems like something that really needs to be school-wide or like rolled out for a longer period than the month and a half or so that I have to be doing this.
Right. Right.
Whereas like one kind of like peer mediation sort of, or a handful of small peer mediation strategies seems like a more manageable chunk. So I just kind of started digging around looking for like peer mediation specifically.
Well, and I can help you with that as well. So I'll look for some articles that now that I know a little bit more of where you're thinking. that you might.
But do you have would you be able to post the forums from
Oh yeah.
last semester on restorative justice? Because I was trying to look up some of those articles that I know others had posted as well, but we didn't have access. So.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Yep, I will do that. Thoughts for Zach? What do you guys think? Responses? Becca, Mary, Beth, Bruna, what do you guys think? And you can unmute yourself as needed. Let's see, Becca, I might have muted you. Let's see. No, you muted yourself.
I guess, Zach, I think that sounds good, kind of the same path you were moving on last time. So I'm glad you kind of figured something out that feels right.
I think you could maybe do, I mean, I was struck by your, at the beginning, Zach, about how right now it's like they need you to help solve their problems. You know, this kind of like, it might be interesting to do some kind of, before you implement these strategies, like some kind of pre-survey. Like, what do you do when you have a problem? You know, when it's a little problem, when it's a kind of medium-sized problem, when it's a big problem, what do you do? And what generally happens? And then maybe at the end, you could do a similar kind of thing and see if there's been at least some breadth of ideas about what they can do, because I think that your goal is a really good one, is to help them take on greater sense of responsibility and autonomy and authority in helping make the classroom a peaceful, more easy place to get along. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting like data piece too. Would be more qualitative, I guess, than quantitative, but just looking at like what they would describe as like a small problem. Yeah, I don't even know, like small, medium, huge problem. You know, like what how they would distinguish those, and then also like how they would deal with each of them, and then do some lessons and introduce some strategies and see if that changes.
Yeah.
It seems maybe more measurable than.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a really good plan, and that's also really, really applicable to the audience of, you know, giving advice to first years too. Because, you know, if you come up with some stuff that's like, this was the best, you know, this seemed to have the most motion, then that's where they start. Maybe you can make the mistakes that hopefully they will avoid, because you're doing it for research, or rather for classroom improvement. Mary, or other feedback for Zach? I mean, we heard from Beth. Other people want to give him some shout outs or questions? Let's see. Becca, it looks like you're typing, but we can't hear you. Oh, Mary Catherine, you are not muted. What do you think about that? And then we'll go on to you.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of stuff that, like, we had talked about last week, Beth and I, which is good, and it's good to Zach that you're like, I feel like you have a lot more direction with it now, because last Tuesday we were a little unsure. I think all of us were. So it's just good. I think it's going to be really interesting, and it would be like, we talked about like some of the things that I have implemented in my school, but it's stuff that's like school-wide, not just in my classroom with like the Rochambeau and like just simple things, but that's stuff that we taught them how to do on the playground. So it's like, you're waiting in line for Foursquare. What do you do if someone jumps ahead of you? Or like, it's on the line. Do you need an adult to come over and figure it out for you? No, you can Rochambeau and figure it out. So it's just like teaching the kids how to do that, like that's simple things, but it would be interesting. And you know, my kids we taught it with the first graders and the second graders together, so it would be interesting to do it with older kids.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we just, and Becca, do you have any things that you want to say to Zach?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to mute and unmute myself because I'm doing it on my phone. My computer wasn't working. But I think I mean, I came in halfway through.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what is this Rochambeau.
It's like rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, to solve problems.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a great idea. I think it's an interesting way to do it instead of just, having students go up to one another and try to figure out how to have that conversation. I think having like some activity that they know how to do is a really good way to initiate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think part of it, that was one thing that I had thought of, well, that Mary had shared for like the small, simple things. And I don't really know if anyone has any thoughts too. The other question is like how many strategies, if I was going to go that route, like how many strategies or something that I would want to teach. Like another one that would come to mind would be like teaching, I think, something that we talk about. I think it's probably a Lamov term. That might be why I'm thinking of it in this way, but like assuming the best.
Mm-hmm.
And, like someone bumps you in line. What is your reaction? Like you just assume, and even like teaching some phrases like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I was in your space, like that, those kinds of things.
Right.
So it wouldn't just be like we have a disagreement over who, has a turn with, or who had that marker first, or who is in this spot in line. It would be like anytime, because I have more issues like that where someone perceives a look or a bump or something as an intentional, like aggressive
Right.
act, even if someone just bumping in line when they're standing 2 inches away.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so I think some of it is maybe going to depend on what they tell you when you first articulate, like kind of what's the little problem, what's the medium-sized problem, what's the big, huge problem, and what do we currently do? Because then maybe what you could do is you could try out maybe 2 things for each size problem, 2 strategies, and then maybe even at the end you could have them evaluate sort of how well did each of them work. If they were only going to pick one, what was their most favorite? What did they rely on the most? Because I think that your kids are, they're going to tell you what they think, and that is that's something that you can totally use to your advantage in this project.
Agreed.
All right, good buddy. Mary.
Am I unmuted? Okay.
You are
So I totally switched.
Okay.
Basically, last Tuesday, like I was working with like Beth and Zach on like character development and curriculum type of things, and then like as a sidebar, Beth and I started talking about the way that she teaches math.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of like she started moving into, she does small groups and does like teaches the whole lesson small group, and then like they rotate to different centers more or less, which is something that like I had been wanting to do, but I just didn't know how to really implement. So with Beth's encouragement, she was more or less like, why are you doing all this other stuff when that's like something you're going to be changing and it's improving your classroom? Why not just use that?
Right.
So I have been talking with Beth a lot, and then on, was it Friday? Friday, I actually went and observed Beth's classroom during her math lesson.
Cool.
Yeah, the benefit of being in the same network.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of different, and I haven't really started implementing yet because we have benchmarks this week that we're taking.
Right.
So we're finishing that up, and I've already switched it in the schedule. So like before I had it in the morning, and now it's actually in the afternoon, just to give me more time for it all. So I've already switched the time and everything. But yeah, they'll start next week.
How are you going to keep track of this change process for yourself?
So part of it is like actually like tracking their exit tickets to see if like the mastery has changed. And the way that Beth does it and that I will be doing it is like there's a lesson on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and on Wednesday we actually have a short day because we have PD and we have chapel on that day. So on Wednesdays there's like 4 lessons within the week, and then on Wednesday you do a mini quiz. So like the students get 1 chance to get mastery on the skill, on the exit ticket, and if they don't get mastery on that, they get a second chance on the weekly quiz on Wednesday to receive mastery, and so that will be tracking that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe one other thing, do you journal, or how do you kind of check in with your own thinking?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you keep a journal at all, or how do you kind of like to reflect on your own process? Because it strikes me that this is about trying on a different set of pedagogical approaches, which is itself really interesting too. So it's not just kind of like, I made this change, did it help? But like, what were some of the pieces that were involved in it? What was your thinking?
So it's basically moving to a more differentiated approach, just
Mm-hmm.
because like I have kids that are like really, really low and a lot that are really, really high and excelling.
Mm-hmm.
And so just seeing how moving into small groups, I can differentiate differently for the groups depending on their needs.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's part of it too.
Yeah. So is that going to show up in, like, do you submit plans to your principal?
I don't submit like written out lesson plans. I submit like a weekly like objectives and what's the what do you call it, standard that's being taught.
Okay, so if like you didn't used to differentiate and now you're going to, will those objectives look different for the kids, or are they going to be kind of, I'm trying to sort of say, like, how might we see this? Are there artifacts out there in your teaching where you're going to see and be able to support, like, here's when I shifted to this, or in week 3 it really seemed to take off when I blah, blah, blah. But if it just kind of like is trying something out and then relying on yourself to remember at the end the kind of interesting nuances of this change, that's really hard to do retrospectively. So what do you think might be a good way for you to sort of track not only the quantitative data of the change, but the sort of characteristics of the change? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. I hadn't thought that far.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that's what you think about next.
I have an idea for her.
Okay, great. What?
So, Mary, something you could track like through your whole group lessons this week, if you do any, or like before you switch, is like who is participating, like who is actively engaged in the lesson and like raising their hand. Because like since I switched, like some of my quietest kids are like really active, like really engaged now in their small groups and like raising their hand constantly. And like raising their hands now outside of math small groups and other classes too. So that's one way you could track like how much more comfortable they feel sharing with the class after being in that small group setting.
Awesome, thanks.
For you, Mary, is that an issue? Like kids who are reluctant to participate, and you think
I have like the same like 6 or so students that regularly participate and raise their hand, and so I do think that would make a big difference for some of the kids that are a little bit more, I don't want to say shy, but just a little more hesitant.
Reluctant, yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's maybe good too. Like at this point, you could even just sit down and kind of bang out a kind of description of what your math class looks like right now. You know, like how many kids raise their hands. How many kids are participating? It might even be if, like, if you wanted to. How long is your math instruction? Like 45 minutes?
It is. I'm going to be increasing it a lot.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, you've got a lot of sort of moving pieces here. So I think in terms of making this comprehensible to another teacher, you want to kind of make sure to capture. Otherwise, it can really stay a little bit mysterious. And you know, you've got a relationship with Beth. You guys are going to be talking your way through this. But I think that if you're going to be trying to represent this for people who haven't been in your classroom, you want to think about what are those, what are kind of the interesting stages in the journey that you want to make sure to remember for yourself, and whether it's a kind of pre and post counting the number of people who participate. You could have, I mean, that's something you can do through tally marks. But at the end, you still have like a mini lesson piece before small groups, right? So will there still be at the end of this change, you're anticipating, Mary, a time when you can actually do a similar post-comparison tally mark? Or are they just going to be, because if they're in a small group, are they even raising their hands? I'm wondering what we're comparing here.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. I was typing as you were talking, trying to get everything that you were saying.
What I'm thinking about is that if you move from like exclusively whole group to small group, one of the things that changes is that kids might be showing their engagement in different ways. Mm-hmm. So like if you start with a tally mark, but then in small groups they might not raise their hands, you want to have some kind of meaningful comparison. So do you anticipate that at the end you're still going to be doing some whole group piece and then you can track hands at the end, or are there other ways in which you know when your kids are engaged that you could also be looking for pre and post change?
Okay.
So what does it look like when, like if you mentioned that you have 6 kids who are more engaged, they're raising their hands constantly. Oh no, that was back when you were saying that. But you know that you've got these 6 kids, right, that are sort of your usual suspects in math time. But I mean, I've seen your kids, and so the other indicators are, you know, they're looking at you, they're doing Brutus Buckeye. So I want you to maybe, just like we were talking about at the beginning with Beth, maybe define what it's going to look like to be engaged in math. Like, what's that definition? Raising hands is one piece of it. But I could raise my hand and like have nothing to do with the content. So that would be something that I'd want you to do, like sort of define what engaged in math looks like, including raising hands.
Also, just like even if like we're doing something on a whiteboard or doing it on manipulatives, like I have a number of kids that just sit there instead of actually doing it when I'm doing it whole group. So like it wouldn't just be raising your hand, but it's actually like participating in the class.
Perfect, great. So, but same deal. Like if you're talking about participation, what you mean is if you tell them to do something on their whiteboard, they do something on their whiteboard and it's related to the task at hand. So, you know, there might be like, I'm looking at how making this shift is going to have an effect on engagement and participation, right? And then as defined by, right? I'm writing that down so I can make sure it's in my notes. But does that sound like something that's going to make sense to you?
Yes, that makes more sense.
Cool. All right, so feedback from Mary Catherine. What do you guys think? Things that she could shout out, things she should be thinking about? It is a little hard because everyone, like, all right, somebody unmute themselves. Oh, this is a big game of not it.
I have a question, I guess. I might have missed it, but like, is part of it also like how aware students are of their participation? Like, would you be tracking like? I don't know. I didn't know if that was like a component of it. Like, are you just tracking like how the grouping will maybe affect their participation in class, or is it something that you're going to like be teaching explicitly and tracking, like, or gathering some sort of data on like their comfort level when participating, or like maybe if it's just like one group that you're recording data for, like how they feel about how often they participate? I don't know. I'm not necessarily suggesting that because it sounds like just adding more pieces to be juggling, but I was just kind of clarifying if that was part of it.
Well, that I think is an interesting idea, Zach, and I would add to that you could, I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, you're studying everybody. You could maybe pick like 3 of those 6 kids who always participate, and maybe 3 of the kids who rarely show engagement, and then maybe follow them a little bit.
Okay.
What do you think?
So, like,
of that
Zach, when you're talking about like administering like a survey and how they feel in terms of engagement, or like actually like me tracking their engagement? That's what I didn't quite understand from that.
Well, I guess that was what I was trying to clear up. Like, I didn't know if it was going to be like, were you going to give them a survey about like, I feel, rating how comfortable they feel participating, or like rating themselves on how often they participate, and then doing that, or if it was just going to be like if you were going to take on that responsibility of like tracking their participation somehow and using that as your data, or if it was going to be some combination of both. Because like they would both have their challenges, I would think, as far as like tracking, like showing improvement.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, what seems like it might be doable? Because you could even like have a conversation. I mean, when Zach's saying survey, you could do that as like, what are you curious about at the beginning? Do how do you feel when we're showing what we know in math? Do you always, sometimes, never feel comfortable putting your thinking down on the whiteboard? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, all of this work, I want to be really clear to you guys that we're not trying to say like, this was the solution and the truth. It's like, everybody's going to try something out. It's going to happen in complex ways. You're going to have something to share at the end of it, and you'll have some new questions, and those are all totally appropriate. But I could imagine that you could do something like, sit down with some of those regular participators and say, here are 3 questions I want to ask you at the beginning. Like how do you feel about yourself in math time? How confident? What do what are some goals you have for yourself? I don't know. I mean, you could come up with those, but you could share them with me then, and I can give you some feedback on it.
Okay.
Like a mini interview with like kind of selected kids. Because I think that the move to groups is actually going to be good because it's also doing this differentiation, I think. So you've got, it's not just gonna, I mean, my hunch is that the kids who participate a lot are still going to participate a lot, but maybe in different and deeper and more rigorous ways. So that's cool too. And that's also a compelling reason to try this out. All right, how about Becca? Let's hear from you.
Hi. Okay.
Hi.
I actually completely changed my project as well.
Okay.
Well, because I started out wanting to do something with culture and journaling, and now I've switched it to a more of a writer's workshop type thing. I want to see growth in writing. My kids struggle a lot with writing coherent sentences, let alone stories. And so our next unit is folktale writing, and so I want to really focus on my students with like depth in their characters and structure. And so I decided a writer's workshop was the way to go to really be able to focus in on my students' needs.
So how much do you know about writer's workshop so far?
Well, I've done looked at a couple websites and found some articles on it, and so I've decided I'm going to set it up very very structured, like a writer's workshop, so they will have the ability to write at their own pace, but there will be the same steps that they need to address. So I came up with like a pre-writing worksheet for them, and then they're going to do the whole editing, revising, draft for that, editing, revising, and then go through the publishing phase, and we're going to do sharing in small groups, and I'm going to do the conference aspect as well, so that I can work one-on-one with students in small groups and with the whole class on like their specific needs.
Nice. That sounds really cool. And I don't know if you would remember this, but it's way back when we were in the literacy class altogether. One of the things that I think I shared with you guys at some point, and I'm going to paste it over here in the chat, is insidewritingworkshop.org. And what that has is an image of a kindergarten, 2 different 2nd grade classes, and a 5th grade class, all aligned under like sort of those components that you just talked about. It's not necessarily the writing, one's individual writing process that you talked about, but the cycle of the writing workshop. So opening the writing workshop, kids writing independently, teachers conferencing with students, closing the writing workshop and celebrating writing, and then teachers reflecting on their process. So can you see that link on the side?
No, because
It might not. If you're on your phone, it might be different.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then I will write down in my notes that I'll email to you guys as well, insidewritingworkshop.org, so you'll have that link.
Okay, sounds good.
What are some of the kids who you're hoping this is going to be most powerful for?
You know what, it's tough because a lot of my kids are ESL, but I hope that every student will be able to produce one piece that they're extremely proud of by the end, and I'll have some kids who produce like 5, 6, 10. I have some that this is their only piece, but I really want them, like every single student, to really focus on structure, content, and editing.
So what would you say, like if you were going to ask them about writing now and ask them about writing at the end, what are some of the things you might ask them?
Well, oh, sorry, I already came up with I'm going to give them a survey, and then I'm going to give them a test.
Great.
The survey is more of like how they feel about writing, because what I guess I want to see happen is that this writer's workshop make them more engaged, excited about writing. So I gave them a survey today actually about how they feel about writing, what kinds of writing they like to do, when they like to write, do they like to share, do they like to illustrate their writing. So it's just a bunch of questions, and then I'm going to give it to them again at the end and see if there's been any change. And I'm also going to give them a little test, or more like a quiz, where it's just the steps of writing and a couple questions about different genres of writing. So.
Nice. So it seems like you've got a lot of different kinds of data that are going to support answering that question. Other folks, what do you think about this? What would be some things that you'd be curious to have Becca explore with her kids?
Do you use a writing curriculum at all?
No, we come up with pieces that align with our reading or ELA units. So right now we're going to be working on folk tales. So that's going to be the main focus for our writer's workshop.
Yeah. What do you think, Bunrod?
So,
Basically, feedback for Becca.
sorry, say that one more time.
Oh, we're just at the point of giving Becca some feedback about, I know that you dropped out and came back on, but what are some things that you'd like to see her explore or ask? She was describing a kind of pre and post survey about how kids feel about writing, as well as a test about their knowledge of the steps of writing and genres. What are some things you're curious about?
We were discussing this on Sunday, and some of the things that we brought up.
Oh no, that's a cliffhanger. Becca, you want to talk about what you guys were talking about on Sunday?
Yeah, so Brunrhoda really helped me brainstorm, and she was really pushing me to have different forms of data. And so the survey and the tests were more quantitative, and then I was gonna, watch their writing progress. And I am gonna use a rubric, so it will be quantitative, but I want to see their growth in their depth change in the amount of writing that they do, in the content that's in their writing. So I think there's going to be a lot of qualitative data as well.
Yeah, I would imagine that you could have something at the end where you could see here is Keegan on day 1 and Keegan on day 20.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping to have.
And little images. Hey, Bunrod.
Okay. Yay, I'm back.
Becca got us up. She summarized a little bit of how you helped her brainstorm. She left us with a cliffhanger of discussing it on Sunday, but she said that you were pushing her to have different forms of data, and so we were imagining at the end she might have some images of student work as well as these quantitative measures. What else do you want to add to that?
We talked about seeing if caliber of the writing, whether they just be like lengthwise or anything, would change by the time that she got to the very tail end of the project. And then just really seeing if their demeanor towards writing has shifted in a more positive light rather than saying more negatively. Yeah.
How honest do you think they're going to be with you, Becca, about how they feel about writing? Are they going to tell you if they don't like writing at the beginning? Or are they going to be teacher pleasers?
They're not really teacher pleasers. I gave the survey today, and for my survey, I did a thumbs up, sideways, and down, which is something that they do to tell me if they, it's a check for understanding that we use all the time. And so because of that, I think they felt more comfortable with filling out the survey. And I told them that it was just for me to see what kinds of things we should do in Writers Workshop to make it more fun and engaging for them. So I think they really wanted to have a fun Writers Workshop, and because of that, we're really honest. Because they weren't afraid to say they didn't like writing.
Excellent. Well, hopefully they'll be showing a lot of movement in that.
Yeah.
So what's your implementation window? How long are you going to be trying this out? I mean, obviously, it might be that you do this now until the end of your teaching career in 40 years. So what are you deciding at this point?
That's what I was talking to Boonrod about. I think I'm going to have the research or the project at least for 4 weeks and collect data at the end of that 4 weeks, but I will continue to probably do Writers Workshop because I'm assuming it's going to be more positive than the lack of curriculum I have now. So, I mean, I'm going to continue it, but I want to have this data collected so that I can start, analyzing it for the project.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds good, because I think some of these things, and it's probably true of most of you guys, you have to sort of just decide at some point to say, like, this is when I'm going to sort of say, at this point, I have enough so that I can make some meaning of the initial efforts in this area. Because, I think something that can feel kind of scary about this kind of research is that it sort of just keeps on going, and there always might be something that would be interesting that would happen tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. And that's okay. We just want to basically say, if somebody wants to try out, get started, has concerns that are similar to the concerns that you have, what is that first month of implementation likely to look like for them? So I think that what I've heard is a lot of really, really good initial thinking, and it totally makes sense for people to change their projects, but I think at this point, maybe try to stick with what you've got now, because I think everybody's got, as you described tonight, everybody's got something that would be really enough, right? Like a good chunk, not too big, not too small, interesting, something you could really work on. So let's go around really quickly before we sort of adjourn our conversation for the evening. And what does everybody feel like their next steps are? Zach, you want to start?
So I want to give the survey. I have kind of an outline of a survey, like kind of based on what you were talking about. I need better terms than small problem, medium problem, and big problem thing.
Yeah.
I don't really know the best terms for that, but
yeah.
At least like as an outline, having them like have what they think a small problem would be, and just saying I usually deal with a small problem by whatever it is, and then kind of using like I think I have an idea of some of the things I might want to introduce, but then looking at those first before really deciding on some lessons that I can teach in the morning during our like character counts kind of time, since I have to be doing that anyway. So just wrapping that time into this project.
Good. And then I'll take down those resources on restorative justice, and I think we had some that might have been on peer mediation also. So I'll post those in our current Moodle. Other folks, I think Becca, you actually wound up with saying things that you're already underway, so that's good. Other folks want to say like what their next step is?
I think my next is going to be looking into the KIP character development stuff more.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a book on my bookshelf called Mind in the Making, so I'm going to look into that and see if there's information in there I can align with KIP stuff.
Yeah.
And then figuring out some sort of curricular plan for teaching and implementing and how that's going to look.
Nice. Good. All right. Mary Catherine, what are you doing next? Apart from figuring out how to unmute. Oh, now you're black and white.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to, I don't know what there we go. I had to switch to my iPad because my computer wasn't working. I think what I need to do is really look at what qualitative things I need to measure and how to actually get that data and what I actually want to be measuring for that.
Perfect.
So.
All right, excellent. That's a good doable thing for the next week. How about you, Bunraf?
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so I definitely want to read more articles on social emotional support in the classroom. I want to come up with my survey that I'm going to be piloting with my kids starting next week, and then I was thinking of even gathering like a particular focus on whatever social emotional aspect it is that my students really want to focus on, like just choosing one that they're stronger at, one that they're weaker at. So just basically coming up with all of the stuff for that. So hopefully by this weekend, all of those things will be ready. That way I can just roll it out on Monday.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so then you guys are free to meet and connect next week. Or certainly the next week is officially Alberna's spring break, so you can also have a spring break actually. But then, stay connected. I'm meeting with the remaining folks on the following week, and then my thinking is that we actually, because of when people have spring break, actually I want to find out when is everybody's spring break in here, because I found when I was trying to cycle around that not everybody has spring break the same time. How about if you guys just email me when your spring break is, or put it in the chat here. And then we'll look to, actually, hold on, let's see. Let me get in. That's too many windows open. At any rate, I will summarize, and then we'll have a whole group meeting as well to kind of get people back in place before we're finalizing our data, our implementation window, and then moving into the analysis phase, okay? So with that, I think we are going, all right, so I've got Zach's. Yep, excellent, good. And then all I need is the HAPA spring break. And if one of you put that in there, then
I'm also on my phone, but spring break for us is the week of April 6th.
Okay, April 6th, great. Week of April 6th for HAPA. Fabulous. All right, so with that, we are adjourned. Mary Catherine, you look beautiful as an Obama.
I don't know how to get it back.
This got very psychedelic. I'm going to stop the podcast.